Apple has poured billions into chasing one goal, and the freshest iPhone 18 Pro Max leaks suggest the company might finally be closing in on it. Most of the noise right now is about the chip, the camera, and the next wave of Apple intelligence, but a new batch of supply chain reports points to something far bigger hiding underneath all of it. 3 upgrades have just leaked, and together they hint at the most dramatic redesign Apple has attempted in years. Beat 1. The vanishing display. Start with what people will actually notice the second they pick this phone up. According to chatter from multiple supply chain trackers, the iPhone 18 Pro Max could arrive with Apple's largest screen ever, somewhere around 7 inches measured corner to corner. The clever detail is how Apple is reportedly getting there. Instead of making the phone wider and turning it into a slab nobody can hold one-handed, the company is said to be stretching the display taller. That keeps the overall footprint manageable while handing users a noticeably bigger canvas for video, gaming, and split-screen multitasking. More room to work without the wrist strain. To understand why that taller approach is such a big deal, you have to remember the trap Apple has been stuck in for years. Every time a phone screen gets bigger, the phone itself gets harder to use with one hand. Reach for the notification shade with your thumb, and you end up doing that awkward little shuffle where you slide the phone down your palm and pray you do not drop it. By pushing the height instead of the width, Apple sidesteps that problem almost entirely. Your thumb still travels side to side the same distance it always has, but now there is more vertical space stacked above it. That is the difference between a screen that looks impressive in an ad and a screen that actually feels good in your hand on day 400 of owning it. But the size is not the headline. The headline is what disappears. The dynamic island, that pill-shaped cutout that has lived at the top of every Pro model since the iPhone 14 Pro, may finally be getting its first real shrink. Leaks suggest Apple has figured out how to move more of the Face ID hardware underneath the display itself, cutting the visible cutout down by somewhere between 25 and 35%. If those numbers hold, almost everything that used to interrupt the screen vanishes into the panel, leaving little more than the selfie camera and a couple of essential sensors poking through. It is the closest Apple has ever come to a genuine all-screen iPhone, and it is the kind of change you feel every single time you unlock the thing. Consider how long this particular journey has taken. The notch first showed up on the iPhone X back in 2017, and people swore it would be gone within a generation or two. Instead, it stuck around for years, then morphed into the dynamic island, which Apple cleverly turned into a feature instead of an apology. But underneath all that software polish, it was still a chunk of black pixels eating into your screen. Moving the Face ID dot projector and infrared camera under the glass is genuinely hard engineering because those sensors need a clear optical path to read your face accurately in the dark. Pulling it off without wrecking Face ID reliability would be a real milestone, not just a cosmetic tweak. Years of incremental nudges, and suddenly the front of the phone looks like the concept renders people have been sharing for a decade. Think about what that actually changes day to day. A taller panel means more lines of text in a message thread, more of a web page visible before you scroll, a bigger viewfinder when you are framing a shot. A shrunken cutout means full screen video that is not interrupted by a black island floating in the middle of the action, and a status bar that finally feels uncluttered. Pair those two things together, and the entire experience starts to feel less like looking at a phone and more like looking at a piece of glass that happens to be alive. That is the trick Apple has been chasing for years, and this leak suggests they are finally pulling it off. And remember, this is just the first of 3 upgrades, because what is happening on the back of this phone might be even more important. Beat 2. Power you can actually feel. Now flip the phone over, because the second upgrade is the kind that quietly fixes the complaint people have had for years. A bigger, taller body does not just give you more screen, it gives Apple more internal real estate to play with, and the first place that space appears to be going is the battery. Reports point to a cell somewhere in the range of 5100 to 5200 milliamp hours, which would make it the largest battery Apple has ever crammed into an iPhone. For a lot of people, that is the difference between charging every night out of habit and genuinely getting through 2 full days on a single top-up. No battery anxiety, no hunting for an outlet at 4 in the afternoon. Just a phone that keeps going as long as you do. What makes this battery rumor especially interesting is the timing. Bigger AI features, brighter displays, and faster chips all tend to drink more power, so historically a battery bump just barely keeps pace with the new features pulling at it. But a jump to 5200 mAh is aggressive enough that it should outrun those demands, not just match them. There is also talk of Apple pairing that larger cell with smarter power management tied to the new chip, so the phone sips energy during light tasks and only opens the floodgates when you are gaming or editing video. If that holds up, the real-world endurance gain could be even bigger than the raw number suggests. And battery health over a 2 or 3 year ownership window could improve too, since a larger cell cycles less aggressively to deliver the same daily use. And surprisingly, the most exciting hardware change might not be the battery or the screen at all. It might be the camera, and specifically how that camera handles light. Multiple reports claim Apple is testing a mechanical variable aperture system for the main 48 megapixel sensor. Here is why that matters. Almost every smartphone camera on the market leans on software to fake depth and adjust for lighting, which is impressive but ultimately a guess. A physical variable aperture changes the rules entirely because it adjusts how much light actually enters the lens before any processing happens. The payoff is more natural background blur, cleaner low light shots, and the kind of creative control you normally only get from a dedicated camera with interchangeable glass. Let that sink in for a moment, because this is the upgrade photographers have quietly been begging for. On a real camera, the aperture is the adjustable hole that controls light and depth. Open it wide and you get that creamy, blurred background with the subject popping in sharp focus. Close it down and everything from front to back stays crisp, which is perfect for landscapes or group shots. Phones have faked this for years using depth maps and edge detection, and you have all seen where that falls apart. The blurry strand of hair, the halo around someone's shoulder, the background that bleeds into the subject. A mechanical aperture does it the way physics intends, in the glass, in real time, with no guessing. That is a fundamentally different class of photography in a device that lives in your pocket. Apple is reportedly not stopping at the main lens either. The telephoto system is rumored to get a wider aperture as well, which would translate into sharper, brighter zoom shots in exactly the conditions where phone cameras usually fall apart, like concerts, dim restaurants, and city streets after dark. Zoom lenses on phones have always been the weakest link in low light because the long focal length and tiny sensor leave them starved for photons, which is why your concert videos turn into a smear of noise. A wider aperture on that telephoto would let in dramatically more light, cleaning up those shots without cranking the ISO into oblivion. Stack the larger battery on top of a camera system that finally moves beyond software tricks, and the Pro Max stops feeling like a yearly refresh and starts feeling like a tool that earns the Pro name. This is the upgrade buyers will brag about, even if it never shows up on a spec sheet at the store. But none of it works without the right engine behind it, which brings us to the third and arguably most important upgrade. Beat 3, the brain behind it all. Here's the part that ties everything together, because a bigger, heavier, more capable phone needs an engine to match. Powering the iPhone 18 Pro Max is Apple's new A20 Pro chip, and this is reportedly the first iPhone processor built on an advanced 2nm manufacturing process. In plain terms, that means more performance and better efficiency at the same time, which is the rare combination that lets a phone run faster while also draining the battery slower. It is the quiet upgrade that makes every other feature on this list work better. It helps to understand what shrinking to 2 nanometers actually buys you, because the number gets thrown around a lot without much explanation. A smaller process node means Apple can pack more transistors into the same space, and electrons have shorter distances to travel, so the chip does more work using less energy and generating less heat. Every generation of this shrink has delivered gains, but 2 nanometers is a genuine leap, the kind of node transition that does not happen every year. It is also expensive and difficult to manufacture, which is exactly why Apple tends to get first access to the newest process before anyone else in the industry. That head start is a big part of why iPhones consistently top performance charts, and the A20 Pro looks set to extend that lead. The bigger story is what that chip is being built to handle. Leaks point to the top-end Pro Max jumping to 16 gigabytes of RAM, a serious leap that exists for one main reason: Apple Intelligence. The next generation of on-device AI features is hungry, and running advanced models locally without shipping your data off to a server takes real memory and real processing muscle. Combine 16 gigs of RAM with faster memory architecture and Apple's own custom C2 modem, and you are looking at what could be the most AI-capable iPhone the company has ever shipped. With Apple Intelligence sitting at the very center of iOS 27, that horsepower is not a luxury, it is the whole point. Why does RAM matter so much for AI specifically? Because large language models, the kind that power smart writing tools, image generation, and a genuinely capable Siri, have to load into memory to run. The bigger and smarter the model, the more RAM it needs to sit there ready to respond instantly. 8 GB was already starting to feel tight for that job, so doubling towards 16 gives Apple the breathing room to run more sophisticated models entirely on the device, which is faster and far more private than sending everything to the cloud. That custom C2 modem plays a role too, handling connectivity more efficiently and freeing up the main chip to focus on the heavy lifting. It all points to a phone designed from the silicon up to be an AI machine first and a phone second. And the upgrades do not end there. Rumors suggest Apple is reworking the frame with a titanium alloy blend aimed at better durability and smarter heat management, which matters a lot when you are pushing a 2nm chip through demanding AI tasks. Heat is the silent enemy of performance, because when a phone gets too hot, it throttles itself to cool down, and suddenly that blazing chip is running at half speed. A frame engineered to pull heat away more effectively lets the A20 Pro hold its top performance for longer stretches, whether you are gaming, exporting video, or running AI tasks back to back. Add in premium new finishes reportedly, including a deep dark cherry and a soft sky blue. Improved satellite connectivity for staying reachable off the grid, and that redesigned all-screen front from earlier, and a clear picture comes into focus. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is shaping up to be far more than the routine yearly bump most people expected. It is a phone where the screen, the hardware, and the silicon were all designed to push each other forward at the same time. So out of everything leaking right now, which upgrade has you the most excited? The nearly invisible all-screen front, the 2-day battery and variable aperture camera, or the AI muscle of that new A20 Pro chip? Drop your pick in the comments below and stick around for the next one.